You ever have that moment where someone crosses a line so violently, so unforgivably, that something inside you switches off? That moment where anger stops being loud and instead becomes cold, sharp, and calculated? Yeah, that's what this story is about. Because when someone laid hands on my friend, someone who trusted us, someone we cared about, I made a decision. I wasn't going to swing fists. I was going to take everything from him, quietly. Before we get into it, if you've ever felt the righteous satisfaction of seeing justice delivered to someone who thought they were untouchable, go ahead and like this video right now. Subscribe because we specialize in stories where karma gets handcrafted with precision. And trust me, you're going to want to hear how this one plays out. Let's get into it. Back in the early days of the internet, when dial-up tones were the soundtrack of every home, I was enrolled at my local junior college. Life was simple, hopeful, full of possibility. I was working part-time in the administration building, dealing with student records, enrollment paperwork, class schedules, the whole bureaucratic maze. Around the same time, I had just moved in with my girlfriend, Lucy. Money was tight, so sharing rent seemed like the smart, adult thing to do. And honestly, it was great. We were settling in, building routines, creating a little home together. It felt warm, safe. One night, Lucy told me she had invited a friend over from one of her classes for a game night. I shrugged. Sounded fun. We invited a few others, put on some music, ordered pizza, the standard college night setup. The doorbell rang, and in walked Lucy's friend Sarah, except the second I saw her, I froze. I knew her. We went to high school together. We were never super close, but we always got along, exchanged jokes between classes, sat together in labs occasionally. Seeing a familiar face felt like a pleasant surprise, like bumping into someone from your old life. Sarah fit right in immediately. She laughed with everyone, told stories, crushed us ruthlessly, I don't know. She started coming over more often, dinners, movies, impromptu game nights. She felt like part of the group. Sometimes she brought her boyfriend, Jay, and from the moment he stepped into the apartment, something felt wrong. He wasn't shy people warm up. He was cold. Quiet, sure, but also irritated by everyone's existence. He sat with his arms crossed, legs rigid, jaw clenched, like being around us was a punishment he was enduring rather than a social gathering he chose. He barely spoke. When he did, it was short-clipped, dismissive. The air changed in the room whenever he was there. Everyone went tense, like waiting for something to explode. We still invited him to be polite, to support Sarah, but he rarely accepted after the first few times, claiming he was too busy. Good riddance. Then one night, the phone rang. It was Sarah, sobbing, barely able to speak. Lucy immediately told her to come over. She arrived shaking, her eyes red, her hands trembling so violently she could hardly hold her water glass. She kept apologizing. Why do victims always apologize? And finally the story spilled out. Jay had confronted her about coming to our apartment so much. His insecurity had curdled into delusion. He accused her of cheating. He never said whether he thought it was with me or Lucy or both, which honestly made the whole accusation even more absurd. But he didn't stop at words. He started screaming, calling her disgusting names, tearing her down piece by piece. When she tried to walk past him to leave, he shoved her. Hard. She stumbled, fell backward, smashed into a coffee table, and hit the ground so painfully she bruised from her lower back all the way across her hip. Lucy later told me the bruise was massive, ugly purple, swollen, raw. I didn't see it myself, but just hearing it made something inside me go silent. My hands physically shook, my jaw locked. My vision narrowed. I wasn't shouting, I wasn't pacing, I wasn't even speaking. I was planning. I'm not a violent person. I've never thrown a punch in my entire life. I'm a big guy, sure, but size doesn't equal violence. And beating Jay up might have felt satisfying for about 5 minutes, but it wouldn't fix anything. It wouldn't stop him from hurting someone else. People like him don't learn lessons from fists. They learn them from consequences. And I had access to the one thing that mattered more to Jay than anything else: his student status. As a student worker in the administration department, I had access to academic records, class schedules, enrollment permissions, and most importantly, add and drop access. And the deadline, the absolute final cutoff to change schedules without permission, was less than 48 hours away. I waited until the building was practically empty, just a few staff scattered around finishing paperwork. I sat down with the enrollment system login, entered Jay's name, and pulled up his record. There it was, his student ID, his full class schedule, his account status, and I smiled. A slow, controlled, terrifying smile. First, I dropped every single one of his classes. All of them, gone, deleted from existence with a few keystrokes. Then I went through and added every class that had an extra materials or course fee, racking his bill up as high as possible. Because if you owed the school money, you couldn't get transcripts. You couldn't re-enroll. You couldn't do anything until you paid. But here's the part that made my revenge nuclear instead of petty. Jay was an international student. If he wasn't enrolled in enough units, he legally couldn't stay in the country. I leaned back in the chair, heartbeat slow, breathing even. No fireworks, no adrenaline, just cold precision. I hung up the enrollment phone, logged out, and walked out of the building into the night air, feeling more calm than I ever had before. I didn't tell Lucy, I didn't tell Sarah, I didn't tell anyone. No fingerprints, no whispers, nothing. The payoff came faster than I expected. Sarah told us later that she was terrified to go to their shared English class that Tuesday. She didn't want to see him again. She was afraid of what he'd say, what he'd do. But she showed up, sat near the front, and tried to focus. She said she saw Jay enter the room, but something was wrong. Someone new was standing in the back, waiting for a seat. The teacher looked confused and checked the list. Then she called roll, and when she got to Jay's name, nothing, silence. Jay raised his hand, insisting he was enrolled. The professor checked the sheet again, checked her online roster. Same result. You're not on the list, she said. You'll need to speak to administration, he tried to argue, tried to insist. His voice got louder, angrier, more desperate. But rules are rules. He walked out, red-faced, furious, and Sarah said she never saw him again in that class, ever. Weeks later, curiosity got the better of me. I logged into the system just once more. All the expensive classes were gone from his account, but there were no other classes either. No schedule, no enrollment. Maybe he paid his fees but got blocked from re-enrolling in time. Maybe he got kicked out. Maybe he got sent home. I'll never know. I don't need to. All I know is this. Sarah never had to sit in a room with her abuser again. And Jay learned, painfully and permanently, that consequences exist. Sometimes I wonder if I went too far. But then I remember the bruise, I remember the fear in her voice. And I remember that people like Jay think they can scare and control others without ever paying for what they do. Mess with me if you want. But mess with my friends? I'll burn your world down quietly. If you felt even one moment of satisfaction hearing justice delivered today, hit that subscribe button. Drop a like so more people get to see this story. And tell me in the comments, what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed or taken? Because around here, we don't just wait for karma. We build it ourselves.